Hey, I'm putting together this commentary video for Prot Warrior and Necrotic Wake after doing a few DPS keys with some other PUG tanks and noticing that tanks find this to be a very hard dungeon to coordinate and successfully get a PUG through. So I'd like to kind of go through what I've settled on doing as a Prot Warrior who used to be a Brewmaster last season and just maybe kill two birds with one stone and explain the thought process around being a Prot Warrior, because I didn't find it immediately obvious coming from Brewmaster, who was pretty face roll to me, where your active mitigation was just passively up as part of your rotation, which isn't the case for a Warrior at all. So just quickly going over the plan when you're getting into a new Necrotic Wake Pug, having a route. So I'll link this one. Where you know exactly which pulls you're doing beforehand is just, I guess, basic mythic plus stuff. For me, I just pull everything over here that moves and plan on getting this orb and this orb for the mini boss and Tyrannical. Like, those are the big things that I have to communicate to people. I've got a few macros that I use as well, so that the pugs know, like, okay, I'm assigning certain pug members to certain weapons. I plan typically on using spears on boss 2, 3, and 4, and lust on boss 1, 2, and 3, and then saving all hammers for the last boss. So I've got a bunch of macros that I'll put down below for like how you can just tell people the plan over and over again each Necrotic Wake. Otherwise, as a Prot Warrior, the thing that's always on my mind. So this wasn't obvious to me coming from Brewmaster, but every pull is the same cycle. Like, every single pull, the goal is to deplete all of your charges of shield block. Unless there's like something unique about the pull where there's like a big downtime and it would be a waste. This is your default. You drain all of your block charges. You drain all of your charge charges and your intervene charges. You use the reprisal legendary so that these things give you shield block uptime, and then you decide when it's a good time to dump your offensive burst damage, which basically means like making sure you've used a sufficient amount of rage such that you won't cap, dumping on Ignore Pain or whatever you have to dump on. So here, for me, the whole platform is the first pull. So I throw a heroic throw at this guy, make him run in a little bit, and then I get as far away as possible, as fast as possible, so that he doesn't start casting yet. And these guys are still out of combat, so typically they won't be targeted very soon. But at this point, what I already have is both of my charges on cooldown. I probably should have used shield block sooner, but now shield block on cooldown. I usually use Ravager before I use Avatar, because Demo Shout is only an 8-second window, and I really want to make sure I get my my spear in the Demo Shout window when you're using the Booming Voice talent that gives you a big damage buff. And there's some risk that I might not be able to do that if I use Ravager first. It's one less global, so that's just how I've been doing it. But now they're all nicely grouped up. They've got Demo Shout still up. Now they've got the spear down. So that's like pretty big damage. Like, for a tank, we can burst, to like 15 to 20k or so every other pull. Every pull. I coordinated beforehand with the hunter, and I asked him to pull this mini boss. One thing you can do as a Brewmaster is you could use your Chi Lightning or whatever it's called to do a 40-yard range pull, but Warrior only has 30-yard range pulls, so you end up having to lean on your teammates more for a lot of stuff as a Prot Warrior that you don't have to do as a tank, as a Brewmaster tank. Brewmaster, you have so much mob control and mobility and range, and it's just like it's very convenient, but at the expense of taking more damage, right? This Incinerator, I have this mouse over macro. The important part for a tank here is that there's a kick that has to happen. So I've got this mouse over macro that says like the person's name, next interrupt, so that we can coordinate in text. This usually works. Usually people listen. In this case, they don't listen. So, I mean, there's only so much you can do, right? You have to just basically give it a good try. Yeah. So here I had called out that the shaman should be doing it, but the shaman did not do that. Hunter died too, and ironically, they were each the people that had interrupts at the time that could have actually done something about it. So I think that's just, it happens. Whatever, you get past it. This guy isn't very scary though. Otherwise, like for you, he's not gonna do any real damage to the tank. I usually take the Fiscal here, which is like, we've got tons of AoE pulls in this dungeon. Like, you'll get a lot of value out of this. So the thing to know about Blight Bags is that they don't trigger the affix, Sanguine, and they aren't scary, and when they die, they damage people around them, if I recall. So I'm doing my standard pull, right? I have my checklist of things that I want to do every single pull. I just get in there, use all my charges, use my shield block charges, use my intervene, spam revenge whenever I have the procs from using charge, get all of that out of the way up front, so I build up all of my shield block. And then the second I'm secure defensively, I dump everything offensively. So yeah, now everything is done. So now at this point in the pull, like, I did my big defense opener, I did my big offense opener, and now I'm just slowly doing damage and making sure I've got enough rage to maintain shield block if I need to at all. So here, I run over here really quickly because I have been looking periodically in the background here and keeping track of this pat. This pat I have to kill eventually, so I usually try to pull it in with this pull if I can, because it's, they don't add any danger effectively, and they help damage down this pull. The only thing to know is you have to pull it when they stop moving, and you have to pull by the head of the pack. Otherwise, you risk pulling that Necromancer. So once they're in, and I know everyone's grouped up, I do Demo Shout, I do the Spear, and then we're back to just routine business as a warrior. Just periodically making sure you've got shield block charges up. I should have been doing a better job earlier on of doing more charging, but we're in kind of a cramped spot here. So yeah, at this point we just clear it up. You'll see I also summoned my Kyrian companion, the owl. It's important to summon him like in the beginning of this pull, because you want to make sure that that he is off cooldown early, so that you can use him again at the top of the stairs in the next area. He has a 5-minute cooldown for some reason, so you just got to make sure that he's on cooldown early enough that it's not a problem. So I run over here, I talk to the guy, and I make him summon the Goliath orbs. I'm not sure why you have to talk to him, but that's how it is. And on Tyrannical week, which this is, I always make sure to pull in a pat, one of these wandering pats with Blightbone. If I could pull both of them in, I definitely would actually do that. It would save the pull later. But it's just a waste to not pull in any trash with this guy, because the orbs do so much damage. Like, they just basically passively die for free. And Blightbone is not scary at all as the tank. Like, he has a tank buster. Oh, so they have yeah. He has a tank buster, but it's a very weak tank buster. I feel like it probably should actually be stronger, but the thing on like mini bosses and bosses as a warrior that's different from being a monk. Like, as a monk, you basically just stand there and like do your stuff, As a Prot warrior, you end up learning all of these nuances to the boss's movements and moves. Like Heaving Wretch, he stands still, for example. So okay, that means that as a Prot warrior, you take that chance to run out and charge back in. You end up picking up on all of these small things. Just spear them all, because there's 3 of them there, and I get cooldown reduction from spear. Yeah, you end up just noticing like bosses move in peculiar ways sometimes, and they always end up giving you like, you know, a little window to do your charge in, charge out mechanic. I'm not a huge fan, honestly. At first, I really did not like Reprisal because I felt like, you know, you were forced to overload your movement abilities for like defense and offensive abilities, so you couldn't just like, you know, use them as movement abilities. Which like the same thing kind of happens with demon hunters. Like they often have to do that like dash that they have as part of their rotation, and that means they can't dash later on when they want to. But I've gotten used to it, and it's pretty fun now. Like I wouldn't be charging at all otherwise, so I feel like it's not a huge deal. I guess for the rage perhaps, but yeah, at this point, like nothing much to talk about. Just make sure you give yourself room with Blightbone. Like I always plan on coming down this way and then back towards the door. So if you have to kite further, you can always kite further. So at this point, what I'm thinking is, I know that I need to kill this Pat over here in the end. So it's in a bad position now. So what I'll do is I'll just like buy some time by, you know, doing the normal pack first. And then honestly, if they were closer, I would just pull all of these together. So maybe it would have been better to wait, but this is how I ended up doing it. So yeah, I do my standard warrior thing. Dump your defenses, dump your offenses, and then, you know, routine business. Get hit by every single Stroming that you can possibly get hit by. You have to make sure that happens. Yeah. So I should be doing more charging here, but I'm not in like really any danger at this point, and I'm still peeking over here for this patchwork soldier pack every single couple of seconds. So now we're down here, finishing off the rest of the pack. This is kind of an awkward pull because, like, typically the rhythm is like you finish the pack and then by the next pack everything's up again. But here, like I didn't have any of my defenses ready, and I knew that we were doing a large pull very soon after this, so I didn't want to use too many of my offenses. So this was kind of sloppy, but yeah, like we just kill them. Nothing much exciting going on here. We're going up to the top of the stairs, and we're doing this whole these three packs together with an orb. So I'm giving myself the time I need to get my cooldown back on my companion from Kyrian. I'm using the orb because it interrupts all the casters. And honestly, having the Kyrian orbs here would be overkill anyway. Like they die. Like this dies really fast, at least on like a Tyrannical week. And it guarantees that we have the full duration of the orbs on the Ner'zhul pack, which is definitely scarier for the tank. Even though on Tyrannical it's not too bad. Yeah, so here I'm just being very communicative with my team, like warning them that like we're doing Ner'zhul, get the orb, get on a mount, don't do the pat. I've got this macro for placing a blue marker down. I usually like to put a blue marker where I want them to go. Yeah, so they know like kind of where I'm intending on going. So we've got the orbs still. They last quite a long time. I'm coming in here. This pack's a bit different because it's mostly magic damage. So I immediately pop shield block. Sorry, spell reflect. And I am looking for an opportunity to get rage to maintain ignore pain. So I do have shield block up because we are, you know, interrupting them, which makes them do melee damage on me. But the big damage here is really the spell damage. Like you can see over here, like 6k, 8k spell damage. Like the purple ones are spell damage. Now, like, you know, his physical stuff is like nothing to me. So finishing off Ner'zhul, I'll throw down a marker over on the spear just to remind people to get it. So right there, Warrior gets it. Warrior has a miscommunication with me. I say burst through the shield because these mobs, the way they work is they summon a shield, and if you can get through that shield, then you basically kill the mob. If you don't get through the shield, then you just continue like damaging the mob, and you have to damage the entire health bar. He thinks that I mean like use the spear on the shield. Maybe he thinks that because I said this shortly after putting the blue marker up, that would be something that I might avoid in the future because it makes people think things aren't true. But between that and the Prot Pally, the Holy Pally saying he has Ashen, I decided to pull the mini boss in with these, and these guys aren't very scary anyway. The thing that's hard with this pull is this monstrosity. So here, this sometimes happens. With this mini boss basically isn't scary at all for the tank. Just don't stand in stuff. This mechanic typically only targets DPS players, but if it targets you, then you can spell reflect it and cancel the effect. So one of them just basically doesn't happen at all. Sometimes it happens if you like charge in further than the group, which is like nice to try and bait. But it's hard to kind of reproduce. So they just got deleted because the warrior speared them, which means we won't have a spear for the last boss, which is definitely bad. And I try to pull them far enough back that we don't aggro that monstrosity, but I was scared of moving them out of the Ashen, and it looks like the Ashen Hollow is actually the thing that pulled, unfortunately. So yeah, it's very hard to pull this guy far enough back fast enough that your PUG team will like understand that you shouldn't be in this area, because he's going to stop and cast like two things. He's going to stop and cast the AoE, and he's going to stop and cast the Ice Lance. So it's like kind of just tricky. Maybe it'd be nice to like work in this third Goliath, but the cooldown on the Kyrian Companion isn't up yet anyway, so it's kind of hard. But yeah, this guy, not very important. He doesn't do very much, just takes a ton of damage and time. So I communicate that they should mount up on me because I want to make sure they don't aggro this pat. So I drop a blue marker way off in the distance. We pat around this and take on this pack and these skeletons. I'm doing my normal thing, like I'm dropping Ravager for aggro, I'm getting shield block on cooldown, getting charge on cooldown, and this pack is like completely trivial as a Prot warrior. Like they do nothing at all, literally. Like I don't even need healing. Whereas like on a Brewmaster, what I would typically do here is I would stay just out of range of those skeletons, and I would spam a spinning crane kick just to like, you know, not take damage. Here as a Brewmaster, I would paralyze the mage, which I can't do now, so I have to call out for the hunter to do it, which is just like, that's life as a not monk. As a monk, you can do all these CC yourself, and as a Prot warrior, you can't do that. But here I make sure that before I use Thunderclap, I just move over enough that I won't break the CC there. This is a mostly normal pack, except I'm just like trying to get more stuns off. I think I send off a Fear too, just to stop the casting. That and just spamming Execute at some point to try to make it faster. Yeah. So that's done. We trigger the RP, which you can actually trigger by just coming here. You don't actually have to go inside, which stuns you. Like you can just like step here and come back and continue fighting downstairs if you want to. This is the hard mini boss for a tank. The bleed that he does isn't something that you can mitigate with your shield block. So there it is. And it actually does a lot of damage. So the thing to be doing here is like consider not using shield block much, like because I mean you saw right there that there was like 5 seconds or so where I wasn't being hit, so I probably shouldn't have even used shield block there. I should just be saving rage and using it on ignore pain, because you can mitigate the bleed damage by like 50% by doing that. So yeah, just spread and then come back in, and just always be thinking about like, okay, how can I get enough rage that I can keep ignore pain up? I have this macro over here that shows me my current damage that I can ignore with my current ignore spell. So making sure that's always like basically above 0. I usually take Stygian King's barbs for AoE damage, but I decided to focus on just like single target damage because I'm really afraid of of not downing the third boss on a pug. And here, I ask him to spear the ads. If you wait for the ads to spawn, you can spear through all of the ads and the boss and eliminate an entire ad pack on your own with the spear. But for some reason, like no one does this. I don't know why. So yeah, you can tell right there he pulled aggro because he speared right away. Okay, so at this point I know, like I'm not gonna. I'm gonna need to save some of my stuff to actually gather aggro. So I don't. I'm not really well prepared for this one because I was hoping that this would basically just not happen, but I should have known better. But this boss also not too scary of a boss for the tank. It's really about managing the ads. Like if a mage gets aggro on like that archer, like he'll die for sure. That mage. So making sure you just like use heroic throw on the little guys to make sure your squishy teammates don't take damage is the key here. Otherwise, it's like try and spell reflect necrotic bolt. Ask your teammates to interrupt necrotic bolt. I think it decreases your healing taken. Here, one thing that's nice about Ravager is like you can use it as like a mini companion for gathering aggro. Sort of like how you can use like the Dave statue on Brewmaster for gathering aggro. But you don't have to give up. You can't do that because you give up Ring of Peace typically. But Ravager is a good ability worth having. So this is just more of the same. We down him. We go upstairs. I think the hunter dies there, unfortunately. But on the upstairs part, the first pull that I'm always looking to do is the right side, right there. So you'll charge in. Fleshcrafter will immediately throw Cleaver, so you back up a little bit and pull the Loyal Creation in between you. The next pull, what he should be doing is casting Repair Flesh, although sometimes the spell queuing gets messed up and he does like another Cleaver, right? So there, like that shouldn't happen typically. So I just stun them to reset the queuing. I interrupt the Repair Flesh and I look behind me because I know spare parts are coming. So throw down a Ravager. There's only so much you can really do with spare parts. Like they seem to just like not really care about aggro or threat or taunts. So your healer will just have to take care of it. Stun them and damage them obviously, but they don't care. Yeah, next pull is always the Wandering Pat, just a clear room. Brewmaster has a speed taunt, like you can taunt and make them run faster, which I always miss. That's like one of the things that and Ring of Peace and Clash are definitely like sorely missed when you don't have them anymore. But here the important part for this whole room is to just make sure that those Kyrian Stitchworks aren't getting too many charges or stacks of these tenderized debuff on you. Like you're fine until like maybe even like 5 stacks as a warrior, but it's very easy to reset the stacks. Like just basically jump away with your leap before he does it again. So at 6 seconds left, you can jump away. Throwing out heroic throws for threat while he's doing that. This is another one of the mini bosses that isn't very scary. I'm like looking for like here, like there was a bunch of these bindings. I use that as a chance to Kyrian spear them because then I'll get the big damage, the cooldown reduction. But for the tank, he's just tank and spec. Just make sure you're doing enough damage to free yourself of the chains. And I've taken the damage as well, and you can easily live through it. So this one's really about the healer and group damage. His ability isn't stellar either, so I think he does like the shield maybe. He's basically the guy that you can easily skip on most dungeons, because if you don't kill him, then your group will have to do 50% increased physical damage, and most bosses or many bosses in the end of a dungeon do like a lot of magic damage, so it doesn't matter too much. Yeah, so yeah, hit shield. Like I can live without that, but whatever. I wouldn't want to risk, you know, leaving him around and having the pugs like pull it by mistake. But once again, like nothing going on. Like just every single pull, dump all of your shield block charges, dump your charge charges for more shield block charges and revenge casts, and then fill in gaps with, you know, ignore pain if you even need to fill in gaps with anything at all. Like, you know, towards the end of a pull, just like one mob. And honestly, like you can just not even worry about like shield block with like one mob. Yeah. So here the plan is just delete everything with orbs, asking them to help me interrupt, which they don't really do. Like, I guess, was that a binding shot? I'm not sure why he did that, but yeah. So now he's like not gathered like whatsoever, unfortunately. But yeah, we do the orbs, big ashen pull. I use Kyrian Spear on the lone guy on the left because if I use it on the pack, I risk rooting the wall in Sanguine. So Sanguine weak, unfortunately, is just kind of a thing that happens. But yeah, nothing else really going on here. So with this pull, what you want to do is just close the gap between them as fast as possible before other DPS like mistakenly widen the gap. Yeah, they'll make sure that the two arrows make sure that everyone targeted goes to a place such that they hit each other, and then the right assistant will cast something and you interrupt it right away, and then you switch over to the left assistant and wait for him to do a fixate, and you look at who he's targeting. So then you target that target and just be ready to intervene. Sometimes people forget to run away, but as a warrior, you can actually intervene them and like take all of the physical hits that they would have taken, which is like very, very nice for making up for mistakes. On this pull, you don't use intervene on cooldown. You wait for an opportunity to save somebody's life. Like here. Like this mage is way out of position. He should be back here, basically. So now he's targeted. He's going to frantically try and get over here in time. It's not going to work. So I intervene him, and then the cleaver hits me instead for like 4K or something. It's like not much damage for me. But that would have like maybe taken like half of the mage's health or something. Just clean up this pack. And now you've got 2 pulls. Of these 2 pulls, the first pull is way scarier because this is a tenderizing one, so he'll do the debuff and he'll do way more damage. So I'm making sure, like, you know, I see I've got shield wall up. Like, I'm planning on at some point using shield wall. I probably use scale a bit too early, to be honest, but I know that, like, I mean, this dungeon is going like well enough that I feel like we're gonna down them like fast with like time to spare. So yeah, doing my normal thing. Maybe could be charging a bit more, looking for opportunities to charge, like using, yeah, here. Charge back in. Okay, there we go. I probably should have actually used that chance to drop my tenderized stacks, but I did not do that. So yeah, there we go. So I actually jumped too soon there, and he tenderizes me midair. So that's also a mistake. So now I don't get to drop tenderize yet. But I wait for him to do this cast. Yeah, I intervene out, and now I use this chance to drop the stacks. And now I'm done. I just run back in. And then this is a similar pack, but it's a bit easier because there's no tenderize. Instead, there's an AoE aura that does damage on Rot Spew. The thing to know with Rot Spew is that when he's dead, his corpse still does that damage. So you want to make sure to move Rot Spew to a part of the room where people won't be stepping in the boss fight. Yeah, so we're done here. So I'm making sure to go to the empty part of the room where Soggodon was, so that we kill Rot Spew off to the side, so that people don't mistakenly step on his corpse and take AoE damage from his disease. Otherwise, not much going on there. I beg people to be ready for the hooks, because this is the part where PUGs fall apart. It's very sad, Like you get this far in the dungeon and then like you just lose because of hook mechanics. This I repeat many times that I'm spearing because I don't want anyone to mistakenly spear when I spear, and then not have a spear left. So spearing this, so it's important to spear this as the tank because, like downstairs, you could choose to spear that downstairs boss and ensure that you get the ads in the spear as well, but it's minimal risk if you don't do that. Here, if you let a DPS spear, then they're likely to mistakenly spear through the creation and kill it early. So I make sure to get in between the Sitchflesh and the creation, and then spear, Sitchflesh and the creation, and spear the boss, and just like I just eat damage, from my back while I'm doing that because it's worth it. Like you have to make sure you don't get that creation, otherwise it risks dying too soon, and then you risk doing extra phases. So here, just make sure like if whoever's targeted has to be, behind the tank in the line over here. So just position it so that they can actually do that, so he gets hit. And we were actually very close to doing this very well, except I think the warrior execute spams the creation and kills it before he can hook the boss back down again. Yeah, so here's the boss. He's just like spamming execute basically. Yeah, he kills the creation. And it kind of bugs out. Like, I don't think that it should be the case that there's 2 creations now, but now there are definitely 2 creations, and I'm getting scared. At this point, if you find yourself in this position, the important thing to do is to spread the creations out. Because if they're stacked up, then one of them will hit the other one and cancel the other one's hook, and the boss won't come down. And you'll have to just deal with more and more creations, and it gets really terrible. So, coming in, getting Sitchflesh back, making sure he's hooked. At this point, I'm like really trying to make sure that we're doing damage to him. I'm dumping all my offensives again. I try to get him into this hook. The DPS kind of puts the hook in a weird spot, and I end up getting hooked. So I just spam out my last stand and my commanding shout as a potion basically. So now I've got like 100,000 like more HP. But we down it, so that's fine. Definitely a little sloppy, but it worked. Here I find out that there is no spear, and that we'll have to do a dry last boss. So no lust, no spear. Just gonna take forever. But here I'm looking. What I'm thinking here is like, okay, I'm looking for the chance to use my hammer. I usually try to. You should be using a hammer on the shield. If you use the hammer on the shield, but what the shield does is it pulses out AoE like frost damage. So getting that shield down fast saves a lot of healing. So we have like, I think we only have one shield, one hammer at this point, because of that mistake with the second mini boss. So the only thing to think of as the tank here is like, okay, make sure you're using Spell Reflect when the shields are up, so you reduce the damage intake and just don't die, which is like very easy to do. You've got enough tools to live and ignore pain and rage generation. Yeah, this ends up just taking like a very, very long time, but we do down it, and we do have time to spare. So yeah, we've got like 7 minutes left at this point, so no one's very worried. But it does take like forever. It feels awful in real time when the fight has lasted like 2-3 minutes. Yeah, we down it and it's fine. So yeah, the thing to keep in mind with Necrotic Wake is that you just have to be very communicative the entire time with your team about like what you're planning on doing and how the weapons are being used and when things are happening, and dropping markers down and making sure that they're on board. Their route I'll put down below, and if you're doing everything correctly, then like here you see like 7.3 overall. That counts for the weapon damage as well. But if you upload your logs to Warcraft Logs, it'll filter out the weapon damage, and for me, like 4.6 on Warcraft logs, which is typically like almost like 1,000 DPS lower than the in-game damage meter would show. Like if this was if I had no weapons at all, I would have had like maybe 5.2 to 5.5k overall damage on this one, with like 4k damage taken as well. So that's definitely very different from Brewmaster, where you often have like more damage taken than you do have damage out or equal, which is definitely very, very nice. Yeah, Spear Bastion is like 15 to 20% of your damage. So making sure that you get every Spear Bastion into a damage buff window with Avatar and Demo Shout is like pretty key to doing tons of damage as a Prot warrior, and front loading it all so you don't lose threat. So yeah, I'm hoping that was useful to some people that have maybe went away from Brew or are coming to Prot new, and if you've had the experience of just Necrotic Wake falling apart on the third boss, then there's definitely things you can do to maximize your odds that won't happen. So feel free to ask whichever questions you have, and good luck out there.